we noted that the Turkish state is moving very rapidly towards autocracy, towards dictatorship. We read on an almost daily basis these days, even in the mass media, about harassment of journalists, jailing of journalists, harassment of the other political parties in Turkey, human rights abuses on a massive scale, jailings, executions, and so on. All sorts of other abuses, quite specific things, the abuses of the Interpol system for a red card system, I believe it's called, whereby states can indicate people who they would like to see arrested. And of course for Turkey that means that they label their Kurdish opposition members that way, and that sees them arrested in countries outside of Turkey. It's widely regarded, of course, by other countries as an abuse. We could also, of course, talk about the support of the Turkish regime for Islamist forces fighting in Syria, down to the level of complicity in what was then the efforts by the ISIS forces in northern Syria when they'd occupied a considerable area to smuggle and sell oil. And the evidence suggests that the Turkish regime, and in particular in the form of the son-in-law, I think, of Erdogan, were involved in that. Turkish intelligence were involved, and when this threatened to be exposed in Turkey, their response was simply to clamp down and say this is a national security issue, it can't be discussed. And so it was, at least in Turkey at any rate, it was to some extent covered up. Internationally, of course, it's well documented. This is the regime that the Australian state is giving credence to. It's likely that the Australian security agencies are listening to that, taking their information from that Turkish intelligence agency, the MIT. As I said, no credibility at all. But for the time being, that is the situation. Submissions were made, as I said, and some people went to Canberra to speak. One of Rob's colleagues, Dr. Victoria Sentas from Sydney. We from the AFK asked to appear in Canberra and speak to our submission, but were told that there wasn't time. And so the committee made its decision, and for the time being the ban, the listing is continued, and that's in place now for another 3 years. I'll just touch briefly on some of the comments that were made by the committee in its report. All of these documents, our submission, the submission from Rob's firm on behalf of others, and the committee's decision are all available online. There's a website of the Parliamentary Committee on Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, and some of these documents are also available on Australians for Kurdistan website. I won't go through the entire document, but interestingly, the committee did make 3 recommendations in this year, which perhaps show some sensitivity to the matters that they're deciding and to their decision. They recommended that the Australian government agencies engage further with Kurdish communities and provide specific advice on the conduct that would fall within the ambit of